Chapter 14, the Personal History Section. The Personal History section of the Family Integration System is where your personal history is recorded. Many people from alcoholic families do not have a sense of having a personal history. The memories of their past experiences are often sketchy and unclear. One of the main reasons for this is that many times the memories of childhood are so painful they are repressed. The purpose of this section is to assist the adult child in filling in the lost memories of his or her childhood and resolving the emotional trauma that often accompanies these forgotten memories. When these memory gaps are filled in, the person has the opportunity to process the feelings that were repressed along with the actual memories. It is important that these memories and feelings be processed. Even though a person may not have the memory of an event that was traumatic, the physical and psychological effects of the event often still have an effect on that person. Unless emotions attached to that trauma are resolved, the person will be affected for the rest of his or her life. One of the purposes of the family integration system is to assist the adult child in processing those lost memories and feelings. It is with the processing of these feelings that behavior changes and old patterns of thoughts and feelings are transformed into healthier ways of dealing with other people and living in the world. In the personal history section, we will be using proved techniques to assist the ACA in the process of resolving and letting go. The first time that you use the system, follow the directions and work at your own pace. As you use this section and the other sections, more and more information about your life will become known to you. This is why the system uses a loose leaf book format, so that as you learn more about yourself, you will be able to add this information to the different sections of your journal. Remember that when making an entry into the family integration system, to date it. This is important. As you add information to the system, the date will assist you in tracking your insights and progress. The first technique that will be discussed for use in the personal history section is dialoguing with the physical body. One of the most effective ways to fill in the memory gaps, both emotional, not feeling anything about an event, and not remembering the event itself, is to dialogue with your own physical body. Our physical bodies contain a wisdom about the events of our lives that is generally untapped. Our bodies have been with us the entire time of our lives, and by using a writing technique called dialoguing, a vast wealth of personal information, not just the factual information, but also the re-experiencing of repressed emotions and memories, can be obtained. There are 4 major steps in setting up a dialogue. Number 1, meditation. Number 2, writing a focusing statement. Number 3, writing milestones. Number 4, dialoguing. Each of these steps will be explained in detail. Number 1, meditation. The first step in the process is to set the correct frame of mind. This is why the process is begun with a simple meditation. Becoming quiet and getting centered, the process of dialoguing will proceed more smoothly and easily. Begin the meditation by finding a comfortable position and taking 2 or 3 deep, easy breaths. The next step is to focus your awareness on the process of breathing. Allow your attention to remain focused on the process of breathing for 2 or 3 minutes. Remember, it is normal to forget that you are trying to focus on your breath and to focus on other things. When this occurs, remind yourself that your intention is to focus on your breath and refocus on that process. Simple, isn't it? Pause right now and take a few minutes to try out this meditation technique. Number 2, focusing statement. The second step in the dialoguing process is to write down a focusing statement about what kind of relationship you have with your physical body. This focusing statement need be no longer than a paragraph in length, but must contain how you feel about your body. Consider these questions. Do I think that I'm too fat or too thin? Am I too short or too tall? Do I just ignore my physical body until something goes wrong with it, or do I constantly obsess over it? The focusing statement states what kind of present relationship you have with your body. Below is an example of a focusing statement. I really feel out of touch with my body. I have not taken very good care of it. And most of the time, I don't notice it unless it gets sick or hurt. I really feel that my body has betrayed me at times. But I am also looking forward to getting to know my body better. It is important to write the focusing statement as if you were talking about another person. Number 3, milestones. The third step in the dialoguing process is to list your life milestones. Life milestones are the major events that have happened in your life. These events can be either physical or emotional in nature. The milestones are the markers on the road of your life. They represent those events that have helped to shape who you are and how you view the world. As a person grows old and changes, the milestones that are important will also change. Therefore, it is important to redo your milestones each time you dialogue with your body. Writing down the milestones also helps to set the mood for being open to the dialogue process. When you are making your milestone list, it is important to keep the number of milestones to a manageable length and to group the milestones into 10-year intervals. Try to limit the number of milestones in each 10-year interval to 5 or 6. Therefore, the number of milestones will vary according to your age. The milestone list is an overview of a person's life, not a detailed account of every event. Thus, the list is fairly short. Many ACAs try to forget that the first 10 to 15 years of their lives ever happened. That is why it is important to group the milestones in 10-year intervals. It forces the writer to do milestones for the first 10 years of life. The following are the milestones of Jane, an ACA. Major life milestones: 0 to 10 years old, being born, playing doctor with friends, being beaten, having tonsils out, mom and dad fighting, getting divorced, being sexually molested by stepdad. 11 to 20 years old, discovering sex, using drugs and alcohol, hating being tall, being awkward around boys, pimples, getting married. 20 to 30 years old, birth of my son Richard, death of father from alcoholism, getting divorced, feeling alone and isolated, auto accident with broken legs, getting sober. The above milestones contain both emotional and physical life experiences and stop during the 20 to 30 age grouping. This is because Jane was in her late 20s when she did this list. When doing your own milestones, stop at your current age. Number 4, dialoguing. Dialoguing is the next step. The process of doing a written dialogue is very much like writing a script for a play. The difference here is that the dialogue will be between you and your physical body. Now, this may sound strange to you, but give it a chance. As I said before, this is one of the most powerful sections in the FIS, and the dialoguing technique will be used in other sections. Most people, when they start out dialoguing, feel a little awkward and unsure of what they're doing. That's okay. The more times you dialogue, the easier and more spontaneous it will become. Below is an example of dialoguing with your body by Jane, the woman whose focusing statement and milestones were used in the above examples. Jane: this seems silly to me. Body: I know. Jane: am I really talking to my body? Body: yes, you are. Jane: I've never talked to you before. Body: I know. You never listen to me either. Jane: what do you mean by that? Body: well, you just ignore me when I'm trying to tell you something. Jane: I do? Body: you do? Huh. What about when you get out of breath when you're going up a flight of stairs? I'm telling you that you need to exercise me more. And when your neck and shoulders hurt, I'm telling you that you are tense. You don't listen. You ignore. Jane: well, if you put it that way, maybe I do. I'll try to pay more attention to what you're trying to tell me. Body: good. Jane: goodbye for now. Body: goodbye. Stay in touch. As can be seen in the above example, dialoguing can bring about some surprising results. The more you dialogue, the easier it becomes, and the more surprising the information that is disclosed will be. When you are doing a dialogue with your body, you can ask it specific questions about events that have happened in your life and how you felt about those events. These events can range from how and what you experienced when being abused as a child to the joy of a dimly remembered happy event. When dialoguing, feelings and emotions that have been repressed for years are often processed. This can be painful. It is, however, worthwhile. With the processing of these repressed feelings, the pain of the experience can be released and the writer will be set free of the event. The above technique of dialoguing is very effective for exploring personal history, and this method will be used extensively later in the FIS. Another way to fill in personal history effectively is by using the milestones as entry points into the past. Milestones are events or happenings that are full of emotional charges. The milestone is like the tip of the iceberg. It is an expression of much more than it appears to be. Like the iceberg, when the milestone is examined in depth, there is an enormous amount of information and frozen emotions that reside beneath the surface. This hidden psychic material that each of us has within can be released by a very simple but powerful writing technique. The first step is, of course, to have a milestone list. We shall use Jane's milestones, listed on pages 113 to 114, to illustrate the technique. Jane, like many ACAs, had large periods of time during her childhood that she did not remember. One of those periods was the time when her mother and father got their divorce. She remembered the time only vaguely and attached no importance to the divorce. To her, it was no big deal. To fill in some of the blank periods of time surrounding the divorce, Jane used the following technique. First, she picked the milestone to work with. In this case, quote, Mom and Dad fighting, comma, getting divorced, unquote. Second, she got a clean sheet of paper and dated it and wrote the milestone at the top of her paper. Third, having decided to use this milestone, Jane thought about what she knew about this period of her life. She asked herself these questions and wrote them down at the top of her paper. Number 1, where was I living at this time in my life? Number 2, whom was I living with at this time in my life? Number 3. What was important to me at this time in my life? Number 4. What was I afraid of at this time in my life? Number 5. Who were my friends at this time in my life? Jane then began to write about the milestone. To begin the writing process, she started by using the phrase, "This was a time in my life when," and allowing the writing to flow. When the writing begins, it is very similar to following a single thread through a spool. It leads through a maze of different and surprising places. When a person writes using this method, each thought triggers new thoughts and memories that have been forgotten or repressed. With the remembering also comes the experiencing of the emotional charge that was repressed at the time of the event or forgotten. With the remembering also comes the release and the letting go of the pain. Below is an excerpt from Jane's writing. This was a time in my life when Mom and Dad were fighting, getting divorced. I don't remember much about this time in my life, but I do remember being scared all of the time. Mom and Dad yelled and screamed a lot. I remember hiding under the kitchen table one night, and Dad hit Mom and knocked her down. He had a knife and was drunk. I was so scared. I couldn't even cry. I thought that if I moved, he would see me and kill me too. I thought he was killing her, and all I could do was hide and watch. I was so afraid. She was all full of blood from where he hit her on the face, and she was crying. He left and I went to bed. They always fought over me, and I still don't know what I did to make them fight like that. As Jane continued to write, more and more of the repressed memories surfaced, and she could see just how afraid she really was, and why she forgot what was happening in her life during this period of time. With the memories often comes the releasing of repressed emotions. It is important to realize that even though Jane had forgotten much about this period of time in her life, what happened during that period still affected her. The fear, anger, and hurt that she repressed then affected her present relationships. This is a powerful technique, and each of the personal milestones contain much information that cries out for release. Use it for all your milestones. The results may, in the short term, be painful, but in the long term, there will be release from repressed emotions and painful memories. The following is an outline of how to use this process. Number 1, get a clean sheet of paper and date it. Number 2, select the milestone that you wish to write about and write it at the top of the paper. Number 3, write down the 5 questions. A, where was I living at this time in my life? B, whom was I living with at this time in my life? C, what was important to me at this time in my life? D, what was I afraid of at this time in my life? E, who were my friends at this time in my life? Number 4, reflect for a moment on the milestone and the questions. Number 5, begin to write, starting with the phrase, "This was a time in my life when." The following is a list of memory-jogging questions that I have found useful in assisting ACAs in filling in the blank periods that most have in their past. Add this list of questions, with the answers, to this section of the FIS. Were you wanted at birth? Were you afraid of the dark? How were you punished as a child? Were you left alone a lot? Were you beaten? How often? Where did you go to hide as a child? How did you feel when your parents argued? Were you threatened with physical violence? Do you think you were sexually abused, intercourse, fondled, watched as a child? Do you remember being held and nurtured? When did you discover your sexuality? Did you engage in sex play as a child? Were you caught? Punished? Was there a divorce? More than one? How old were you when you first remember a parent drunk? How did you feel when a parent was drunk? Did you ever see a parent nude and drunk? How did you feel? Did you have friends over to your house? Did a family member die? How? When did you begin to masturbate? Were you caught? Did you like school? How many friends did you have? Did you have any childhood homosexual experiences? Did you ever see one parent hit another? How often? Did your parents ever threaten each other or fight with weapons such as guns or knives? Did you feel trapped? How old were you when you first had intercourse? How did you feel about it? Were you able to show anger? Did you cry? How do you show anger and hurt today as an adult? Now, all of this might sound like an interrogation, but it's just a discovery of what you might have experienced as a child. What questions and answers would you add to this list? The personal history section is an integral part of the family integration system. It is a section that is never really completed, but is continually added to and reviewed. Through the growing awareness and memory of your personal history and the filling in of the emotional and mental blank spots, a continuity with yourself and your past can be established. When this occurs, recovery from the painful and confusing programmed patterns of feelings and behaviors that ACAs unconsciously carry around with them can and does happen.